The Black Scholars Podcast.
BlackScholarsPublishing.com.
That we should get our own. Once we have our own, we're respected for the fact that we can create our own. And that's equality right there.
Icon living, start a record label, Misfits just did it. Whoa. Nylon cover 5 minutes. Whoa, we are too hot in the business. Whoa. About to make a movie independent.
Okay, dope. That's super dope. Super dope. Mm-hmm. So let's get into it. So you are a business analyst, a business system analyst to be specific. And the thing that intrigued me about you is that you used to be an English teacher, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about your teaching background. When did you start? What got you into it? What grades were you teaching?
Yeah, sure. So I was a high school English teacher. I taught mostly 11th and 12th grade. So I taught the older kids, which I really enjoyed. My bachelor's degree is actually in English. So it was like an easy transition to become an English teacher because I already had a degree in English. And then I got my certification through an alternative certification program, one of them Urban Teachers. So they've since rebranded to something else. But yeah, I was a urban teacher, resident, or whatever it is that they call it. And it was cool. It's different than Teach for America, because Teach for America is kind of like you get in, you teach for 2 years, you get out, and some people stay, but most people will leave.
Most people leave.
But for urban teachers, it was like some people still leave there, but it was like a 4-year commitment. So,
ooh, 4 years.
Yeah. So like in order to get through the whole program, you have to do 4 years, and they felt like, they were doing a better service to the school because they weren't just like sending in teachers for 2 years, and you at 2 years you really still don't even know what you're doing, and then like sending them out. So yeah, I think the program is actually really great. I learned a lot, and I think excelled as a teacher a lot faster than I would have had I done it a different way or a different program. So I'm thankful for that.
Dope. So, and excuse me if you said this already, so how long did you actually teach?
I would say 4 years. In the program, you do like a full year of teaching. Like you teach in the summer, you do an intern year for 10 months, and then you teach in the summer again. So it's like a full year of teaching. Okay. And then you go into your own classroom. And then I did 3.5 years as like a full-time teacher.
So in your 3.5 years, what grade level was that?
Mostly 11th and 12th grade. Like I never went below 11.
Yeah. And see, I started out at high school, and I reluctantly dropped down to middle school, and I fell in love with middle school. And one of the things that I fell in love with middle school was I felt like their focus was a little bit greater. Now, obviously, you were dealing with 11 and 12th graders, so they're thinking about college, they're thinking about ACTs, SATs. So if you have a good group of those students, then you probably didn't have to deal with that as much if they had, they were thinking about their future. But from the time I taught high school, cell phones they were always respectful for me, but like cell phones were always an issue, them being distracted, them trying to take the conversation or the lesson to another topic. And now we've been talking about this for 15, 20 minutes. And wait a second, we have an objective to get to. So in middle school, I just felt like I could be a little bit more authoritative than I was in high school. I mean, I still held it down in the high school, but I felt like, especially being a black man where they're not used to seeing that very frequently, that gave me a little bit of extra credibility at the middle school level. But I don't know. I just fell in love with middle school. But me and you, we have very similar backgrounds. I did an alt program as well, too. Mine was not Teach for America, but I did teaching fellows, if you've heard of them. And so we didn't have much of a residency. It really was just like a summer. You had pre-work, and then you had a residency in the summer. For my residency in the summer, I had to teach reading to second graders. We had a first and second grade class, and I took over the second grade, and I just dealt with ELA stuff only because that was my strong suit. And then from there, I went to high school, and then I transitioned. I transitioned down to middle school, and I spent probably 8 out of my 11 and a half years in education in middle school. And I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But similar to you, it came to a point where it was like, I'm just speaking for myself, but I didn't want to do it anymore. So I'm curious to know, like, Jazmine, what was your aha moment, or the light bulb over your head where there's like, I'm not going to do this for 30, 40 years and retire. I want to do more. I want to do something else. What was that for you?
I mean, it was a lot of things. It was a lot of things, but I think the thing that really kind of pushed me over the edge was kind of just like the burnout that I experienced. You know, like I was just like so burnt out because I do feel like I was good at my job. But it was just kind of like, in order to be good at your job as a teacher, you have to put like all of your energy, all of your time, like your whole being, like into it, you know? And I like that because I felt like I was like really connecting with the kids and doing really good work. But I just felt at the end of the day, I just felt so depleted, you know, like so depleted. And I really didn't have any energy for my life outside of work. And I didn't like that feeling. And I didn't really see it changing. So that was like kind of my reason.
And you're taking me back to those emotions I experienced when I was in the classroom. And I actually had a transition. And my transition was going to be the traditional, well, you've been teaching for a while, you've been killing it, your data looks good, your kids' data look good, so let's transition into administration. Of course, a black man with a beard that the kids respect, and his coworkers.
It's funny. My former principal was a black man with a beard, and he was like, you know, kind of like a church going man. So it was like he was, you know, he had that like preacher like thing going on. Yeah, absolutely. But we're always like pointed towards, you know, administration, but much like a full-time professional in whatever industry, you know, they always tell you to become an entrepreneur. Not everyone should be a full-time entrepreneur. Now, I can make an argument that we should all have something on the side, something part-time. It helps with taxes and allows for different tax deductions and other benefits and whatnot. But as far as being a full-time entrepreneur, no. And same thing in education. Not every classroom teacher or educator should be a principal. Head principal, assistant principal. Look, you know it. You were in it for, you know, 3.5 years plus. So you know just how much work goes into being a principal, specifically an assistant principal. The assistant principal does a lot more work than the principal. The principal is kind of, just think like I'm talking to the listeners here, like Pinky in the Brain, right? So the principal is organizing things basically from a high level, from a macro level, but it's the assistant principal along with the teachers that get ish done, right? It's on the assistant principal. Assistant principals don't work 40 hours a week.
They don't work 40 hours a week. They got games to go to, dances to organize, events, PTA. They've got a lot to do. They've got principal meetings that they have to attend. They got professional development that they have to keep up with as far as required hours. So they have a lot on their plate, and they're dealing with a lot of them are dealing with parents and complaints and student violations of major policies, right? So they got a lot on their plate. I've seen that stress up close and personal. One of my best friends actually was a head principal, and unfortunately, he died at an early age. And I'm not saying he died because of stress or anything like that, but I'm just saying to say it's a lot of work. And so to the point that you're bringing me back to those emotions, and I really mean that is, well, let me ask you this. For your students, 11th, 12th grade, how frequently were they writing?
I would say, I want to say like almost every day. I want to say almost every day. Yeah, I would say that. But it was mostly, to be honest, it was like mostly reading. Like it was mostly reading. Like the school that I went to, the school that I worked at was very like, our like reading scores and stuff like that was very, very low. In Baltimore City, I will say this, like it's crazy. I don't know how it is in other cities, but I would imagine it's the same. But like in Baltimore City public schools, unfortunately, there's like 3 or 4 like good public schools. And I was like fortunate enough to go to one of them. But when I became a teacher, I realized how like why the disparity was between those schools, and I was just blown away. I just couldn't even, imagine it. But so yeah, I would say like I tried to like, do writing like every day. It was mostly reading. Because, that's what students were still struggling with really, even at like 11th and 12th grade, which most people would never think, but it's true.
So when you say reading, we're speaking in terms of comprehension, or are there still fluency issues that your students were dealing with at 11th, 12th grade?
I would say like, in 11th and 12th grade, like I would say there's still some comprehension issues. Like if it's like, if they're reading about something that they have like no background knowledge on, then they're gonna like miss a lot of things. They're gonna miss a lot of like the, figurative language and stuff like that. They're gonna miss a lot of the the context. But they can read, like they can like sound out words on the page. You know what I mean? But it's just like at the 11th and 12th grade level, you're supposed to be able to like go beyond the words. Like we're at the point where you're supposed to be able to read between the lines and go beyond the words. And many of the students, they were not at that level independently. I had to do a lot of work to get them to that point.
Right. Yeah, and that makes me think of like the zone of, was it proximal
development, I think.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about that now. I went all the way back to undergrad in psychology. But I'm thinking about that as well too, is, you want to do like a gradual release where you're guiding them through difficult, complex texts. And that's what most of the critically acclaimed or award-winning or kind of research-based curriculum is. And that's how it's like organized, where it's like you guide them through the difficult stuff. And slowly but surely, as the school year progresses, as the semester progresses, that's being released gradually to them, where now we can trust that they should be able to independently do these things. But you're saying, hey, they're not able to do these things independently. A lot of it is still on me. So that's stress. So then, and educators are listening to this, so we all can relate to this. When you're dealing with a group of students or a student population that's not where they're supposed to be based on their age and grade level cognitively, and according to the standards in your academic domain, that is stressful, because let's just say it right now, somebody failed them. right? Like not literally
Mhm.
failed them a grade, but failed them as far as instruction and checks for understanding and reteaching material and making sure that they actually have the skills they needed at seventh grade, eighth grade,
Mhm.
ninth. Because
Mhm.
if you look at English standards, ELA standards, right, and Common Core standards, that's a whole separate discussion and what states did with that. They're still
Mhm.
Common Core standards. Most states just took them, revamped them, put their own stamp on them. But the
Mhm.
goal is the same in every state. Students should be college and career ready. And
Mhm.
so that starts early. That starts in elementary. The foundation is super strong, strongly built and constructed at middle school. And then at high school, they're really doing or preparing to do college level work. But all of the power standards, those skills and competencies that a student should be able to have, Jazmine, you should have had that with your 11th and 12th grade students, but you didn't. And so I understand your stress because even when I ask you about writing, the reading is directly tied to that, right? Because we're not just having students write for no reason. Like it's based on your comprehension. And that's
Mhm.
what we're skilling you up for because, it's all academic for the most part through high school. But once you get to college, especially if you get students who are thinking about going to a professional school, like becoming a
Mhm.
lawyer or a
Mhm.
nurse or a dentist or whatever, they have to read even more complex texts. They have to
Mhm.
understand it, and they have to be able to write or regurgitate or express understanding in written format somehow, some way at that level. So it starts really in elementary. Argument it starts in middle school, but it really starts in elementary school. It really
Yeah.
just
Oh,
what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that because, like, in as far as part of my certification program, like I have a master's degree in education,
Hmm.
and we learned a lot about the science of reading, and
Yep.
we studied, like, like my program was like secondary ELA, but like so many of my classes was focused on reading because that was the need for the area that I was teaching in. Like it's like, you know, these kids, like, they are just not where they should be as far as reading. And so like you as a teacher, like you have to like play catch up,
Hmm.
like you have to play catch up, and that's like really part of it. And most people would say like, you know, you shouldn't be why are you teaching reading in high school? Like why are you teaching reading at that
Because they need
level?
it. They need it.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like they need it at that age. So like, and then there was like this one statistic that I'm sure it's common, but it's like, if your child, isn't at a certain level of reading by, I think it's like the second grade or something like that,
Hmm.
um, it just keeps going down from there. Like if
Hmm.
they're not reading on level by the second grade,
Yeah.
then they're just with each grade, third, fourth, fifth, they're just going to keep falling
Yep.
farther and farther behind. And then when they get to like sixth and seventh grade and they're not where they should be, then it's like an emotional thing. It's
Right.
like then they become embarrassed, and then
Right.
they develop a negative attitude towards reading.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
like, and then when they get to high school,
Yeah.
it's just that the problem is just like, out of control at that point.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of like the path that a lot of these kids go on. It's like they don't really learn to read the way they should in elementary school. And then they get all the way up to high school. And then they have a negative attitude towards reading. They say like, oh, this isn't important.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
don't need this to get a job and all this
Right.
other kind. And they've just like rejected it.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
like as a teacher, I kind of have to fight back also against this like negative attitude that the kids have developed around like literacy and reading in general. They're
Hmm.
just like, oh, this is stupid. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't relevant to my life.
Yeah. I did that. I did that. I very much did that work, trying to inspire them. I've showed kids like drafts of books and articles that I was working on and published. I've shown them checks. I've shown them bank statements, just to show them like, hey, I'm not saying you have to be an author or you have to go own a publishing company, but I want you to know literacy, like it makes a difference. Like you can make money, and that's the one thing with kids, especially at the secondary level, middle and high school. You say money, oh, they
Yeah,
listening. They're
yeah,
listening. Literally, if you just walk to the board and just write money and don't say anything else, they looking like notebooks out, pens. What we talking about?
yeah.
Money. Okay, I'm
No,
ready
it's
for this
funny
lesson.
because
Yeah,
they'll be like, "Oh, why aren't you teaching us financial literacy?
yeah,
Why aren't you you know what
yeah,
I'm saying?"
yeah,
And I'm like, "I feel you." I'm like, "I agree. There
yep,
should be a class on this,
yeah, yeah. I always try to weave in teachable lessons or teachable
Mhm.
moments. So when real life stuff happened, whether it was in the news or even if we were reading a fictional story and it dealt with something real, I would try to tie it to, their actual real lives and help them like try to understand like what we're working on in class, what we're working on in this fictional story. It has real implications to it. The
Mhm.
skill sets that you're working on right now, let me show you how that can lead you to being a nurse. Let me show you how that can lead to you being an entrepreneur. Let me show you how that can lead to you being a stock market trader or investor or working on Wall Street. Like I always
Mhm.
tried to do those things for my students because even as a English teacher, I never was an English teacher, and I was a good English
Mhm.
teacher, but I was never an English teacher because I always had something going on, and whatever I had going on, I brought into the classroom.
Mhm.
When I started my tech journey and I started learning how to code and program, I came to my school and I said, "Hey, do we have like a code? Do we have like a club for coding or programming?" And they're like, "No, but we got a few students interested." And I knew we had students interested because I always tried to build rapport and relationships with my students. So I knew what they would
Mhm.
work on the outside of their homework and their athletic activities and whatever they were participating in. Like I actually tried my best to get to know my students. And so
Mhm.
many of them would tell me is different stuff that they were working on. And, oh, Mr. Wilson, I tried to build a website and I'm on this and, I don't understand this. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So as I'm learning, like I can't do this within the English classroom necessarily, but it even helped me make analogies with certain stuff where I'd be like, well, look at this. And I just draw up like some code. And then I would like draw like I'd write out like a paragraph, like the format of it. And I was like, what do you guys notice? And then like the syntax, like it's like it's similar. Like there's a beginning of the code, there's like a middle part, and you need a conclusion. Then you have like notes to the side in case somebody else is
Mhm.
reading after you. And so then I'm like, I'm becoming a better English teacher just by the fact that I'm exposing my brain to other stuff and I'm learning other
Right.
stuff. I could bring that in the classroom and not 100% of the kids are going to relate to it, but I'm reaching those other kids that's like, and this is an English class? Like, whoa. Like
Mhm.
he's throwing in a lot in here. And you can't expect every teacher or educator to do that. It's nice when we can, but ultimately it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I fully understand where you're coming from. But enough about education. That was great. Enough about education. That was great. Um, so you decided it was time to move on. It was time to go.
Mhm.
Um, take us through those thoughts, those emotions you were feeling, and if you could remember in the beginning of your tech journey,
Mhm.
what were all the different things that you were considering?
I mean, well, I would definitely say, um, like money was a factor
Sure.
because we know how like the internet and the algorithms work. So once I kind of like started seeing like one article here, one influencer there, one YouTuber there, like all of a sudden I'm just being flooded with like, oh, I'm in tech and I make this amount of money, and I'm fully remote and all this other kind of stuff. And it just kind of made me think like, maybe I should try this, like maybe I should try it. So I would say money was a big factor for me because like, even though I feel I was, in Baltimore City, which we have a really strong union, and they like the health insurance is top tier, like the pay increases like you start pretty well and then you can move up and you can make a decent living. However, I was just like, you're so stressed because like your observations and stuff are tied to your pay, which a lot of people feel are unfair. And also it's just like, you can move up by taking like different courses and stuff like that. But it's just like, once again, I'm already working outside of my work hours, so now I have to work outside of my work hours for my job. And then I have to take all these courses to kind of move up this salary level to get to a livable wage, like, it's like, I just thought to myself, it's just like, do I really want to wait like 2, 3, 5 years to, get to a place where I feel comfortable financially? Meanwhile, I'm like working myself kind of like into the ground. I was kind of just like, yeah, I don't want to live that way. So, I guess transitioning to tech just seemed appealing because it just seemed like a better work-life balance, and you are more in control of your salary. It's not like a set rate for this amount of years and this amount of credits and stuff like that. Like you're more in control. So that's what appealed to me about it.
I'm so glad you said that. And I've had episodes where I've talked about the salary scale. I know there was a federal law that they were contemplating where national minimum wage for teachers would be 60 grand. And I mean, I said it on this episode. I'll say it again. I mean, no disrespect to anyone earning 60 grand or not earning 60 grand a year. And of course, it depends on your family size, your financial literacy, how well you can manage money. But I feel like we should all be able to have a single job that not only pays us a livable wage, but pays more than that. Because ultimately to win in life, and I never look at winning in life as just a money thing. It's always bigger than that for me. It's got to be holistic. It's got to be comprehensive. Because what sense does it make to be a millionaire and be, 200 pounds overweight? You're not going to be able to enjoy that million for very long, sir. It's not helping. And so I just think about all of those things, and we need to be able to not only just have a livable wage, but we also need to be able to have enough to save. We also need to have enough to invest. And that's how your money makes more money. If you have a lot of educators have so many different skills and skill sets. I know people who could do hair. I know a girl who started her own cosmetic facial dermatology like business. I don't know exactly what she does, but it's something with the cosmetics, and she's got other women looking beautiful and looking good. And she ran up a bag doing that. But it's like, why do we always have to look outside of education in order to run up a bag when we're trying to convince these kids they should take their education seriously? They should go for not just a degree, but advanced degrees, advanced credentials. And the people they're looking at saying that, the messenger doesn't have the bag.
Yeah.
Messenger doesn't have the bag. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good at all. Or they say, oh, well, yeah, do all of these things. And even if, a kid decides to get an education, I feel like that's a reason why a lot of kids don't ultimately get an education, because they're like, oh, I could be a principal, but the principal looks stressed. The assistant principal looks more stressed. They're always working that. They're at every event, every game. I don't think I want to do it. My teacher, they have several, my teachers, they have several degrees. They look stressed. They're driving a Toyota Corolla. Nothing against Toyota Corolla. I love Toyota. But yeah. I love the Toyota brand. I drive a Lexus. There's nothing wrong with the Toyota brand. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So, I just say all of that to say, like, just like you, I looked at that salary scale. And to your point, to add on to your point, I looked at what does it look like in 20 years? Because for most districts, it caps off. Like once you get a doctorate degree, EDD, PhD, and you've worked for 20 years, that's it. That is your salary for the rest of your career. So for some districts, it's 76,000. Other districts is 88, 90. Sometimes you might even be able to get to 100, depending on, the district and where you live.
Yeah,
But
I think
that's it.
ours.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I think ours tops out at like 100 something,
Yeah.
like maybe 100. Yeah, I don't know, close to 100,000. And I just thought to
And that's
myself,
20
like,
years with a PhD, right? Or EDD, right?
so yes, but you could get there quicker. But I was just thinking, it's gonna like I feel like you could do it in 5 to 7 years. Like you could do it to like 5 to 7 years. And I feel like I was at like year 3 and I'm just like, I'm sorry, I can't like kill myself to reach this
hustle to
like
get it.
height
Yeah.
of a salary that's like,
Yeah.
and then it's like, that's it.
Yep. And then you
know?
got people do the was it national board certification, and
Yep,
they
I
can
thought
add
about doing
on
that.
extra.
Yeah.
Depends on the district, but I think the lowest I maybe have seen like an extra 1,000, maybe 1,500 extra.
For ours is like, for ours I think it was like 15,000 or something
And see,
like
that's
that.
nobody, and I have yet to do an episode on that, and maybe that's something that I'll do in the future, where because I know some people who are nationally certified, and I know the work that goes into getting that national certification. I almost considered it, and I was like, because I'd like to say like high level or high quality educators, like we're kind of all built the same. Like regardless of how smart we are, we work even harder. Like whatever our natural gifts are, we pretend we don't have any. We work even harder. And so when you have like that mentality where your work ethic is that high, like you have to put yourself in check. Because otherwise, like you said, you'll work yourself into the ground. You gonna say something?
Oh, I was gonna say like I consider the national boards as well because I'm just like, oh, this is a good look, and then I can, if I want to move to a different place, I can take that with me, and also like obviously like it'll be good for my paycheck, but also to like just it's kind of just like a level of excellence, that you have to like reach as a teacher, And I'm just like, I felt like it was a challenge. I'm like, I can do this, even though people fail and you may have to do it multiple times. I was just like, I know that I can do it. If I put my mind to it, I know that I can do it. However, all of that, like all of the energy and everything that I know, like what it would take for me to get that, like you could change careers and get the same result.
Yep. Yeah, like I'm not gonna get in specifics, but like when I first started teaching, which was 2009, that starting salary versus when I first got into tech, that starting salary, it's not equal. Yeah, it's not equal at all. And even, after 11 and a half years, and I was working in a suburban district and the second highest paying school district, according to my research, in the entire state of Tennessee. So I'm, making good money in comparison to what other educators are making, even in my own state. Because I'm at the number 2 and the number 1. I had an interview with number 1, and it was for a position. It was for a classroom that really I probably wouldn't have been a good fit for anyway. But I was just looking at the direct deposits, to be honest. Because here's the thing too, and I say this all the time, as educators, right? And even though me and Jazmine are no longer in the classroom, hey, I don't know about you, Jazmine. I'm an educator for life. I got the degrees, I got the data. Like I put in work, right? I put in work. I'm an educator for life, and I'm a lifelong learner, right? That's really what it means to be a scholar. That's what Black Scholars is all about. That's what it means to be an educator. We are lifelong learners. I've always said, you can take that same knowledge that you've already proven, because teaching isn't easy. And if you can be an effective teacher, you have the ability to go learn anything and go get the bag. Because to our point with the salary scale, the ROI isn't there.
Mm-mm.
national board certified. You're coaching this sport, that sport. Oh, we'll give you an extra stipend. Man, please keep those stipends. That little
Mm-hmm.
$1,000, I can spend that in Target, and I'm not playing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not playing. Look, and you get that at the end of the semester or the end of the year, depending on your school or district. Like, are you kidding me? Like, we
Yeah.
really need to value ourselves more. And that's the thing that's, I started this podcast in 2018. That's the thing that's always motivated me is we can be so much more. Not to ever discredit anyone that decides to stay in a classroom for 30 plus years, or anyone who decides to stay in education for their entire career. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I just want people to do more, if that's, allowable, if that is not too unreasonable. So as a classroom teacher, I'll still get into whatever money I can get to in a multitude of ways. And if that's the route you want to go ahead and do it. But Jazmine, I agree with you. The reason why I wanted to get into tech, and I did get into tech, is because I was thinking about work-life balance. And I'm still thinking about work-life balance. And I'm still relatively new to tech. So even over the next, I'd say year and a half, there are things that I'm doing that I have to do so I can really get to the big bags. But I have a plan. And so I can execute that plan and make it happen and increase and continue to increase my quality of life, my work-life balance. I could do those things. But I just want people to have a plan. I want people to execute on those plans and to want more for themselves. So I'm glad that you, as a fellow English teacher, have decided that, although you were great at what you did, I'm sure you had great data, your students were doing great, you recognized that burnout, you didn't ignore it. I mean, if you look at the research, the reality shows most educators don't make it past year 3. Make it past year 3. So the fact that you were there as long as you were, the fact that I was there as long as I was, I felt like I've done my due diligence. I've done my charitable deeds. I've created a lot of good, positive karma. And now, we get paid.
Right.
What's wrong with that? Jazmine, if I'm wrong. Jazmine, if I'm lying, tell me I'm lying. What's wrong with getting paid?
It's nothing wrong with
It's
it.
nothing wrong with it. It's nothing
There's
wrong
nothing wrong with it.
Being able to save and invest. It's not wrong with having some seed money to start a business. Or if your friends or family, if they're starting a business and you can help support them. It's not bad with having assets and owning things. And continuing to grow in your financial literacy, not just in theory, but in actual application and practice. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's nothing's wrong with that. Yeah, nothing's wrong with that. Yeah, like
I feel bad for that though. Like in education, I'm talking about education. They make us try to feel bad for that. Like, teachers, we don't get paid. Oh, we don't get paid till next week. I'm broke right now. I can't go out there.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like it's kind of just like glorified. It's kind of glorified. Right. And then it's also there's a lot of gaslighting from administration and really just society at large, Even
the programs that be, just to interject real quick, like you came in through alternative method, I came in through alternative method. You did say you got your master's. You got a master's of ed. I went and got a master's. Actually, I got 2 masters. One's not in education. So yeah, from all of the stakeholders, that's what we'll call them, all of the education stakeholders, they sold us a dream. Yeah. And we can get on a whole conversation about, like you said, society as a whole and the American dream. That's a whole nother podcast. We'll skip We'll skip that. But we know what's going on out there. When you make X amount of dollars and your bills are X, and they always say, hey, budget, cut your expenses, adjust to inflation, adjust to whatever's going on in the economy. Yeah, you can do that within reason. But after a while, you've budgeted so tight. What are you eating every day? Rice and beans? Shout out to Dave Ramsey. And I love Dave Ramsey. I'm not eating rice and beans every day. I'm not doing it. And I like rice and beans, but I don't like them that much to eat them every day. Are you kidding me? I'm not doing.
Right.
We deserve better. There's nothing wrong with using, and I always say this, my number one asset, regardless of my size, my physical attributes, my number one asset is my brain.
I agree with that.
So why don't other educators think the same? And really they know it, but I think it's just a matter of comfort. There's a matter of and we could talk about this, imposter syndrome. There's a fear there. I think I asked this once on Twitter. I think I said something to the effect of, what's your biggest fear? And somebody responded and said their biggest fear was success. And I'm surprised that response didn't go viral, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. So you decided to leave. You decided to go. What was your first initial steps in making that transition from the classroom to tech?
Well, I think, I don't know. Like, I think I had, to be honest, I think I had an unrealistic expectation of finding a job outside of education. So my first approach was like, okay, I need to like change my resume, and I need to just start applying to, jobs in ed tech, and I need to start like, building like my LinkedIn, like trying to get connections and stuff like that. But I think like the initial step was like my resume, because if you're trying to get a job in corporate, it doesn't translate, your education experience doesn't directly translate to corporate. Like, your skills and the stuff that you're doing, it does, but like the way you word it on a education resume,
Absolutely.
you have to kind of like figure out how to like position your skills and your expertise to kind of translate to a corporate environment. And that was probably like the most difficult part.
Yeah.
I feel like that was like the most difficult part. So I think that, the resume transformation, that was like the first step for me.
So did you read books? Did you watch YouTube? Did you pay anyone either to teach you or to do it, or how'd you accomplish it?
So, okay. So I'll talk about something. So I think like I signed up for like, there's this one program, I think it's called the American Dream Academy. So that's completely free. And you can do all of the Google certifications for free. And they have other ones too. So if anybody, look that up, American Dream Academy, because it's free and you can get like a lot of certifications for free. So I did that, but also I did, and I'm pretty sure you heard of this because you're on Twitter, but the My Tech Best Friend boot camp. So I signed up for that. So I left my teaching job in, the end of the year, I think in 2021, 2022, maybe. I'm not sure the years, but I left it. And then that summer she had one coming up in September. So, I think it was 2022. She had it coming up in September. So I was like, oh, well, if I don't get a job over the summer, I'm going to do this boot camp. But even if I do get a job, like if I do this boot camp, then that'll help even more. So, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in tech. I was thinking about project management because as a teacher, you're leading projects every day and stuff like that. But I wasn't getting like any like traction in terms of like my resume for that.
Did you go after the certification?
Yeah, so I was looking, I started doing the Google project management certification. But yeah, like I wasn't having any success with that. So I tried to transition to technical writing. So like for months I had been pushing myself as like project management and stuff like that. And I wasn't getting any traction with that.
Okay.
So then I changed to like technical writing. And then, like I started like hearing from recruiters and stuff like that.
Okay.
So because I thought to myself, like, with my like writing background and stuff like that, like that kind of directly translates. Like if you can teach people how to write, like you know how to write.
You can do technical writing. Yeah. I should say really quick, my other master's degree I mentioned, it's in technical writing.
Oh, okay.
We have a lot in common. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So like I think for me that was the turning point kind of in my transition. Is like when I was trying to do project management, it was like, yes, I have like leadership experience. I have project management experience and stuff like that. But
you've been in education. They want to see actual corporate projects.
Right. So it just like wasn't translating. And also I felt like it was just too broad, But then like when I went to technical writing, like I could really get like really specific about like I like created, like I authored a course, like I, did grant writing, working for a nonprofit. You know what I mean? So I was able to like take it from just super broad, like management of all types of industries to being very specific. Like I have a skill in writing that, that's like, marketable or something like that. So that was like the biggest change is like figuring out like where my unique skills could be like highlighted or useful.
Yeah, that's super dope. Super dope. So didn't get traction with project management, started to get a lot of traction with technical writing. How did that lead you to where you are right now?
So once I started kind of tailoring my LinkedIn and my resume towards technical writing, I just kept going with it. And with each kind of like recruiter call that I had and each kind of like interview that I had, like I would just keep tweaking my resume more and more.
Smart.
And just making it more specific. And finally, this recruiter reached out to me and was like, hey, would you be interested in a business analyst / technical writer position? And I was just like, yes, of course.
I would. Absolutely.
And it was just like, and it's funny because it's just like, I really think like the biggest lesson I learned in terms of like the transition was like, don't try to like go for multiple positions, really kind of zero in on one thing. And then if you put it out there, like you are this, like somebody will, somebody that's looking for that, they'll find you. So it kind of just like came together. Like it felt like magic, but I felt like it was like, it was like months of work and preparation that led to that moment. So
absolutely. So you spoke about, you improved your LinkedIn, you improved your resume, you were getting traction, having these interviews, and after each interview, you were taking the feedback that you were receiving and you were going back and revising your resume and your LinkedIn, continuing to show your value in the tech. Specifically as a technical writer. And then finally you got contacted by a recruiter and boom, there you go. So you're not just a business analyst, you're also doing technical writing in your position.
Yes.
Okay. What does that look like? So actually, let's scratch that. On a day-to-day, I'm in tech, so I know that looks weird. On a week-by-week basis, just kind of walk us through, like, what could you be working on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, mornings, afternoons? What are your days? How are they like structured in the different tasks?
So what I'll say is right now, like I work on a BA team, and then we have kind of like a senior BA, and then we have like a couple other BAs, including myself.
Nice.
And right now we have like our projects are kind of in like 5 big buckets.
Okay.
And like one bucket is one bucket is kind of like internal, like knowledge base building.
Okay.
So we're kind of like building out like internal websites for the teams that we support.
Okay.
So that kind of looks like a like Confluence knowledge management, you know,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
articles, links to
SOPs.
yeah, stuff like
Okay.
that.
Nice.
So that's one project that we're working on.
Nice.
Another project that we're working on is an actual handbook.
Okay. Fire.
It's like a quality assurance testing handbook because we kind of support the quality assurance teams for the company.
Okay.
So that's like one work stream is like updating the testing handbook. And that was like our biggest project when I first started. And that's kind of like what like my manager had me and another woman that I work with working on by ourselves mostly. So that's that. And then we have like some kind of like process improvement. Like there's like one bucket that's like all about process improvement. So there's like a software that the testers use, and we kind of like analyze how they're using it, like their process, and like whether it could be more standardized across different teams and stuff like that. So we do some like analysis of like how they are utilizing the software.
Okay.
So yeah, so those are kind of like our big three things that we're like working on right now.
And so when you say working on, are you in a lot of different meetings? Are you doing a lot of independent work? What does some of the independent work look like? What are some of the actual tasks that you might have to work on any given day?
So yeah, so there's meetings. So there's like some meetings that I'm sitting in just to, you know, to know like what's going on in like a broader sense. And then there's some meetings that I schedule myself with certain people, like I guess you could call them like stakeholder interviews, you know, like
Sure.
I'm interviewing like people about how they do their job so that I can like document it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm interviewing people about how they do their job so that our team can document their process or kind of like figure out a way to make it better, to make it smoother, stuff
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's meeting. Yeah, some meetings I'm just kind of listening in, but some meetings are like me interviewing, like me or another member of our team. We're just interviewing people about what their work process is like so that we can document it or that we can work on like improving the process.
That's fire. I love that. So on the BA side, you are conducting these interviews, eliciting information from these, I guess we can call them subject matter experts, because they
Yeah.
do their job every day at a high level. So you're taking all of their technical expertise, and then on the technical writing side, you're documenting that. You're documenting their process. If there's not a process, you're creating a process, documenting that, or if there is a process, your team is looking for ways to improve it and documenting that new SOP or new whatever the document is, technical documentation. That's fire. So have you thought about, okay, so you're the second, I guess we could say Brandy was somewhat in education before. She wasn't a classroom teacher, but you're the second person I've had on the podcast that literally has two roles in one, right? Like most people will try to make technical writing their career, right? And most people will try to make being a business analyst their career. You're doing two things at once, which is excellent. And this is your first tech role, correct?
Yes.
I love that. Okay. Gems are about to be dropped. I love that. So you're at this, you have a conundrum, Jazmine. You probably have thought about this already. Which way do you go? Like what for you, like what is the overall goal? for you career wise? Like, what ultimately would you like to be doing? And it could continue to be this, or do you pick one, or do you go back to project management because now you're working on actual projects? So what's the overall goal for you?
Yeah, I definitely have been thinking about it. Like where do I want to, like, in which direction do I want to grow my career? And one thing I will say about being a business analyst is you get exposed to a lot of things. Like I feel like I feel like it's a really good entry level tech position, So because you get exposed to like all, like, agile methodology, the software development life cycle, like QA testing, technical writing, project man. It's just like like you get exposed to almost everything, like all the stuff that I kind of had been reading about for months and months in terms of tech. It's just like now I'm in this job and I'm being like exposed to like all of it at once. So I don't know, like I think that as of right now, I think I'm leaning towards project management because that's kind of like, I think like as a teacher, you're doing that every single day. Like people don't understand, like as a teacher, you really don't have a manager, You're like, you manage yourself, like you manage your week, your month, your, quarter and stuff like that. And so I feel like being kind of like organized and managing work and stuff like that, that's kind of like what has, I don't know, like that's what has interested me thus far. So I'm just like, if I can, continue to kind of like build those skills, like I think that would be an interesting path for me, is project management. But I don't know, like business analyst, like I really like that as a role too, because as like an English teacher, like, and as a like person who studied English in college, it's like analysis. That's what it, you know what I mean? Like you're analyzing literature.
You're analyzing,
You know what I mean? Like you're using analytical skills. And I feel like as a business analyst, that's all you're doing. Like you're analyzing business process. You're making recommendations on how to improve it. And I feel like that's a very valuable skill in business. Like businesses are always going to need someone to come in and look at what they're doing and tell them like, I think you could improve it in this way. So yeah, like I think, growing my business analyst skills and, or, transition into project management. I think that those are kind of like what I'm interested in right now, but I don't know, like 2 to 3 months from now, I could be like excited about something else.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing with tech too, is that, I hate to say it like this, but get in where you can. If you're serious about getting in tech or whatever industry, but specifically about tech, and they'll give you the opportunity to basically continue to learn on the job. Like you said, you're learning so much, you're being exposed to so much, and work on those skills, build those relationships, build those rapport. Now I got a referral, right, for future job, career, wherever. And at the same time, I get to explore these different areas and decide like, where do I want to pivot? And tech is so big. And I know a traditional perspective of tech is, Facebook, Meta, I guess Twitter, X. Why did I even mention them? Microsoft, sorry, Microsoft, Apple, real tech companies. But we think about those big tech companies, Zoom, Spotify, Netflix, whatever, and we think that's it. No. Using it as a SaaS, where it's like a Salesforce or ServiceNow. There's technology and everything. Look, if you walk into a business and there's no computer or tablet or internet or I don't know what business that is in the year 2023. I don't know what business. Look, Walmart, Target, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, they're everywhere, right? They're literally, even museums are using technology, art museums, technology, the zoo. There's technology in the zoo. So technology is a part of our entire lives. It's all across society. And you just have to kind of figure out, like, okay, what area do I feel comfortable in? And then really, I would like to say, and I'm saying this as a novice, but I feel like success in any industry, specifically tech, is based on your curiosity and your willingness to be uncomfortable. So we mentioned something before that I really want to ask you about. You've been in this role for how long, Tim?
Right now it's probably like 7.5 months, almost
Seven,
8.
7.5. If you can go back and maybe you still experience this, have you dealt with imposter syndrome before?
Yes, for sure.
And like, could you like kind of walk us through? You don't have to get specific, whether it was a project or a meeting you were in and somebody asked you a question, you're like, huh? Because I get that sometimes people ask me a question, I'm like, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out though. But like, or maybe it's just a task or project you're working on and you're just like, you really have a moment to yourself where you have to take some deep breaths and say some positive affirmations and think some positive thoughts and kind of push your way through. But like, what have you dealt with as far as like imposter syndrome in your first tech job?
I think that like, I don't, to be honest, I think the first like month or two was just kind of like, oh my God.
What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just very surreal. I was just kind of like, oh my God, what is going on? And it was just like, it was kind of a lot to learn in the beginning. So I just felt like a little overwhelmed, but I would say that like my managers, they're very helpful. Like they're very helpful, and if you ask them a question, they'll answer. And, for the most part, they don't make you feel like you're less than. So I would say that like I'm lucky to be on a really good team where they're like very supportive.
I love that. And so tell me this. So technically my first start in tech was actually as a data analyst. All right. And I made the mistake, and I've said it several times, and I know listeners like, Leonard, don't tell us again. But I'll say it again because like I still live with it, is I didn't do a good job vetting the company. I got excited when I got the first job offer. I remember reading my personal email of the job offer. And actually they enhanced my offer. So it was like I was going for one position and one salary, and they were like, we got to do some discussion and we'll come back. And they came back with a higher position with a higher salary. And so I'm sitting, it was the end of the school day. I don't know if you guys did, well, probably not. You're in high school, but middle school, some middle schools, the homeroom comes back to you at the end of the day. So my came back to me at the end of the day. We're waiting for dismissal. These kids, like, usually I'm type A during class time. If it's not class time, I honestly, as long as y'all not killing each other, I do not care. And so like, I don't let them go crazy, but like if they're talking, they're having a good time, maybe somebody starts dancing or something, I really don't care. I'm ready for y'all to go home, and I'm ready to go home. And so like, it was just funny how I'm looking at my email and it's like a class of like 20 kids or whatever. And it's just like, it's not chaos, but it's like, they're just doing their thing. They're talking loudly. Somebody's grabbing candy. Like all types of stuff are going on. And I'm just sitting there looking at this email like my life has just changed, right? So I was excited to take the offer, and I did take the offer. I didn't go on any interviews. It only took that might have been like my third or fourth interview, Jazmine, before I got that data analyst. And I say all that to say this. I didn't ask them a lot of questions about their culture, about the manager's leadership style. I don't even think I really asked much about like, why is this position available? Who had this position before? Why did they leave? What does success look like in this position? What do you think, based on my resume and what you know about me, could be a potential not red flag, but what would I have difficulty with, obstacle that I would need to work on to overcome? And I will say this: I was promised that I would be put under someone's wing, right, like right under their wing, and develop me and train me up. Because again, remember what I said. They offered at first. I got offered one position at one salary, and I didn't say yes immediately. And so they went back to the drawing board, and they came back with a more senior level position. I'd never worked in tech before, and they came with a higher salary. Wouldn't say yes. And then you have someone saying, I will put you under my wing. I will train you up for the senior level position, even though you've never worked in tech before. And I regret that. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Because I have so much better understanding. And when I'm in an interview for a job, for a tech role, I asked, if not as many questions as they ask me, but they're in depth. Did you? And so, and I'm not going to ask you if what questions you asked them or whatnot, but I'm glad that 7.5 months, 8 months, so in dating, people give you a false representative, right? And fall in love with that false representative. They wonder, like, what happened? Why they just changed? They turned into a completely different person. No. They were always the same person. They just gave you a representative, and you felt to do whatever you needed to do to recognize those red flags, or you ignore those red flags. But they were there. They were very, very representative. So think back to that. Even the first, like my first month on the job there, Jazmine, they let go two people, and it never was clear why those two people got let go. And I just was like, what did I sign up for? Right? But everything was in creams, meetings were going great, projects was going great, my direct deposit was still looking great. I really didn't do too much thinking about it. But I just like to, again, listeners, I know you've heard the story before, but whatever career you're looking to transition to, simple tech, make sure that you've done a thorough job doing research. And now I'm reminded another red flag is that I couldn't even find this company on Glassdoor, Jazmine. And the reason why I couldn't find them on Glassdoor is because they changed names. But I didn't realize that until after the fact.
Wow.
Yeah. So, guys, please do your research, be thorough. Jazmine, I'm so happy that you have a first tech position where you're being supported, and the culture sounds like it's a good culture for you, and you're learning so much, because that's what you need. I mean, it's the same thing in education. Like, how many coworkers did you have, or how many friends do you know got an education as well, and they went to that school or that district, and you went to this school, that district? Your careers weren't the same. Your experiences and success wasn't the same. It makes a difference. Your leadership makes a difference. The culture makes a difference. Your coworkers and how they interact, and just, it's the little things like, hey, the coffee pot is out. Shouldn't you just go make some more, even if you're not going to drink anymore, because other people are going to come behind you? Or it's just the really simple things, common courtesy, that makes a difference, because a lot of these jobs can be difficult and complex. So try to make the culture at least inviting, warm, supportive, when things get tough and whatnot. So I'm so glad that I'm doing what I'm doing now, and I'm with the company I'm with now, and the culture is great, and I love my manager, and they're very, very supportive, and they let me make mistakes, and they celebrate my small wins and all that good stuff, because ultimately that's what you need when you're just getting started and you've transitioned to a new career. Like, especially for educators, we need that. We need that, because that imposter syndrome is real. And Like we said, educators, most of them don't make it past year 3. I'd be interested to see from educators who have transitioned to something else, like how many of them have successfully transitioned. And time reveals all. So that is always at the top of my mind too. Is it's not just about making a transition. It's not just about making a switch, but doing so successfully where there's longevity there. And that's why, it's not just about getting in, right? It's like you still have to work equally as hard. So two things I want to address real quick, and then I'll let you go. Credentials. I know you have your undergrad in English, your master's is in education. I know you mentioned some Google professional certifications. What certifications have you helped you or have you acquired to help you get where you are right now that helped you get that role?
So I would say I started the Google project management one. I didn't finish that.
Okay.
But in my time with the MyTech Best Friend Bootcamp, I didn't finish, and obviously there was a lot of drama with that. But in that time, I was introduced to Salesforce and kind of like Salesforce careers. Fire. And I was kind of just like, oh my gosh. Like when you discover Salesforce, you're like,
yep.
What?
It's a lot going on over there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that like some of the Salesforce projects that we worked on, like they were like technical documentation projects,
Yeah, for sure.
So, I actually, I don't know, like I was just really interested in it. Like I was interested in Salesforce as like a company and as a software because also I'm sure like the Bradley Rice person who has the
Talent Stacker.
Talent Stacker, yeah.
I'm a Talent Stacker. I'm in Talent Stacker.
Okay, yeah. So he really is a good seller on Salesforce. So he's like, listen, if you're trying to make money, learn Salesforce.
Come to Salesforce, yeah.
So I in that time I learned some Salesforce, and I have the Salesforce associate certificate.
Okay.
And so just kind of like learning, I would say, just learning a software like makes you have stuff to talk about in an interview, in a technical interview. You know what I mean? Like I'm no Salesforce expert, but I started learning it and I started like, documenting certain things that I was doing and stuff like that. And that really helped me. Fire. And like, it really helped me. And I think, putting kind of just like those Salesforce projects and the fact that I was like learning Salesforce and stuff like that, I feel like that also kind of legitimized my like technical expertise, And so I think that it made, like I said, it made good conversation for interviews. And it also, I think it draws eyes to your resume and profile and stuff like that. So, so yeah, like I actually interviewed for a Salesforce technical writer position.
Okay, fire.
And I didn't get it. And I probably, to be honest, like I probably wasn't like, if they hired me, I was going to learn what I needed to learn. But I probably, wasn't at the level that they wanted for that. But I just thought it was like, I was just shocked that I even like got that interview. So yeah, I would say the only certificate that I have is like, I have a Salesforce associate certificate. Okay. And I am in the process of working on the Salesforce administrator one.
Fire. Yes. And as everyone knows, I'm a Salesforce admin. So I know how difficult that can be. Are you using any specific resources to study besides Trailhead for the admin exam?
So yeah, I bought like a course from like Salesforce Emily.
Okay. Oh yeah, she's good.
Yeah, because I bought her course for the Salesforce associate. Okay. And it was like I took that course and I took the exam like 2 days later
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
passed it. So I was just like, she's very good at like telling you exactly what you need to know for the test. So
Mhm. Yeah. And I always tell people, whatever resource you find, like, use it and stick to it, right? Like, if it worked for you once, continue to use it. I used Focus on Force for my admin, and for a lot of people, like, Focus on Force is way too much information. And so one of the study tips that I have for people is like, I was trying to use two different resources at once. I was using Trailhead and I was using Focus on Force. I had to stop doing that and I had to just complete one. So I just focused on Trailhead, finished everything I needed to on that trail, however long that took. And then I went to Focus on Force and spent however long that took knocking out the study guide, then working on practice exams, and then I knocked it out my first time. And there's so many people that fail that thing multiple times that, look, I was so stressed. I was like, I'm not going to fail it. I'm going to finish it. We're going to do this one time and one time only. I'm here for a short time, not a long time. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. So I am extremely grateful. And actually right now, to kind of circle everything back, I'm actually working on my Salesforce Business Analyst certification, where, at first they had it where you have to have you needed the admin certification first, and then you can take the business admin certification through Salesforce. They have separated that. So now you can just anybody can take the Salesforce Business Analyst certification, whether you have been an admin or have an admin certification or not, which at first I was kind of upset because I was like, hey, you lowering the barrier. But after talking to some people and seeing some different opinions on it, I think I'm a lot more flexible now, and I understand, like, if they're lowering the barrier, that means that there is a need. So there is a need for more business analysts and Salesforce business analysts to elicit those requirements and to be a liaison between whatever department there is in the company and the tech team, IT team. Like, there is a need for analysts to lead and mitigate these projects and help improve these organizations and their processes, like you were saying earlier. So there's a huge need. There's a huge need for someone to analyze, and the business analyst field is so widespread, because I know business analysts who do coding. Jasmine, I'm not playing. I know analysts who have to do Python. I'm like, that ain't no business analyst. That's like a data scientist. I don't even want to call that a data analyst, but I guess there's levels to it. So that's like mid to senior level data analyst, borderline junior data scientist. Like, why are you a business analyst doing coding anything? What? I wish they would. I would leave. Let me know in the interview. I'm not, and I've dibbled and dabbled in coding and programming and whatnot. I'm still trying to decide if I want to go the developer route in Salesforce. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I've got an alternative plan where basically I am making sure that I'm getting enough technical skills that I need to be extremely marketable. And at the same time, I also want to do the not so technical work. So I want to do the analyst work. I want to do the consulting work. I got a consulting client right now that I'm working with in the nonprofit space. And so I'm trying to, make sure that I'm as marketable as possible and that I can check off as many boxes that need to be checked off so I qualify for, like we talked about before, that salary that doesn't have a cap, and that work-life balance. See, I made sure I said that because, again, back to that salary scale that educators are limiting themselves to. Why are you limiting? I love working with kids. I love. Then okay, can we open up a Montessori school or a charter school on the side? Go get that money from us. Go get that money. Those kids ain't going anywhere.
Exactly. Like, you can, that's what I tell myself. I'm like, once I get in the position where I'm more like financially stable, like I can help you. I can help kids in a different way. You can introduce kids to Salesforce. You can start a club and do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's coding dojos and Khan academies and all different types of things that allow you to, work with kids and introduce them to like more technical stuff that will significantly improve their life. No disrespect to the standard K through 12 curriculum, but there are, so many, even financial literacy, like that needs to be brought into the K through 12 space. And that's something that could be an after school program. You can partner with the district and do that. You could do that online, right? That could be like a bunch of videos you record, webinars, and you can have a whole curriculum line like that, and make money from it too.
Yeah, for sure.
And still living your purpose. So there's so many different ways to continue to be an educator without necessarily, being in the classroom and, all right, kids, pull your iPads out, we don't have to do that. Like there's other ways to reach that goal. And there's other ways to work in your purpose without necessarily being confined to classroom walls. But off of that, so last question for you, Jazmine, and this has been great. Thank you for joining us.
No, I'm happy to be here.
For any educator who is thinking about potentially doing what you did and transition to a career, and it doesn't have to be in tech. It could be maybe they want to be a fireman or whatever they want to be. They want to be a nurse, right? They want to go back to law school, whatever they want to do. What advice would you give them? Just like one piece of advice or like one resource, or what would you say to them to help them calm their nerves and to finally step out on faith?
What I would say is, I would say teaching is one of the hardest jobs in the world. So be confident in the fact that if you can do that, you can do anything. That's, it's like, once again, like society wants to act like we just, I don't know, sing songs to kids or whatever, but it's just like, it's like one of the hardest jobs in the world. So know that if you can teach, there's nothing that you can't do, I feel.
I love it. I can't piggyback on it. I love it. That's all I can say, because you're 100% right, is that you can do anything you put your mind to. Like if you have done all that you have done, and I know it's different in each state, to become a licensed educator, right? And, I know a lot of the, people who listen to podcasts like this, they are high achievers. They have the work ethic, they're overachievers, they're high achievers. Many of them have been identified as gifted, at some point in their educational careers, their K through 12 careers. So they were supposed to succeed at a high level. And again, not to discredit education, because if you want to stay in that classroom for 30 years, cool. But I need you to go do some other stuff because you deserve a better life. And if you want to stay in education, you want to be a principal, or you want to work for the school board, or you want to be work in the Board of Education, whatever it is, cool. I need you to start making a plan to make that happen. But for those of us who realize, like, hey, there are some other industries out here who are living life like we can't live, right? They're traveling, they've got money, they're investing, they're giving back, they're doing all these great things. You can do that too, because you have the capability of doing so. So great piece of advice, Jazmine. You dropped plenty of gems. I'm sure they will pick it up. They will take notes. They will write. How can they find you if they want to reach out to you?
I guess my Twitter is Jazmine Raquel. So like you can find me on Twitter. And then like my LinkedIn, I'm Jazmine Saunders on there. So like LinkedIn and Twitter are like kind of like, where I'm at online.
Fire. And I will leave that in the show notes. Other than that, Jazmine, it's been great.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
You go enjoy it. Yeah, you go enjoy the beach. Go enjoy the beach.
What can I say? Mamba out.
Thank you for listening to the Black Scholars Podcast. For more information, go to blackscholarspublishing.com.
You just gotta
Go.
You will never know what you could ever be. If you never try, you will never see. Stating